And welcome to Hannity. And tonight, Hillary Clinton's campaign once again viciously attacking you, the American people. Now, yesterday on Meet the Press, Clinton's campaign manager, Robbie Mook, took aim at Trump supporters once again. Watch this.
I think a lot of the people that stand by Donald Trump are deplorable, and the things that they say are deplorable.
And in the newly released audio from February, which was obtained by the Washington Free Beacon, Hillary Clinton slamming Bernie Sanders supporters. Wow, she's going after everybody.
There's just a deep desire to believe that, we can have free college, free health care, that what we've done hasn't gone far enough and we just need to, go as far as, Scandinavia, whatever that means. And half the people don't know what it means, but it is something that they deeply feel. Some are new to politics completely. They're children of the Great Recession, and they are living in their parents' basement. They feel that they got their education and the jobs that are available to them are not at all what they envisioned for themselves, and they don't see much of a future. If you're feeling that you're consigned to, being a barista or, some other job that doesn't pay a lot and doesn't have much of a ladder of opportunity attached to it, then the idea that maybe, just maybe, you could be part of a political revolution is pretty appealing.
Joining us now with reaction, former racial justice director for Bernie Sanders, Teslin Figaro, is with us from the Washington Times, Charles Hurt, and the host of Justice, Judge Jeanine Pirro. Tesla, let me start with you. Look, I never would have voted for Bernie Sanders because he's a socialist. But Bernie seems genuine to me. Bernie seems real. Bernie believes everything that I think he says. You listen to Hillary behind closed doors and, living in mommy and daddy's basement, children of the Great Recession. Now, either she's trashing Bernie Sanders supporter or she's making an admission that Barack Obama's economy has been horrible and he hasn't fixed the economy in 8 years as president. So which one do you think it is?
Well, I never thought I would vote for Senator Sanders either. I'm an independent fiscal capitalist. I supported him because he was saying at the time that he was against the establishment. And I have news for Hillary Clinton and everybody who supports her. I did not grow up in mommy's basement in Oklahoma. The only time I was in the basement was when I was running from an Oklahoma tornado. I grew up with the shirt on my back at 18, went to Dallas with no car, no job, became a business owner with 300 paid employees. No one has ever gave me anything. I've never looked for anything for free. Never got anything out of this country that I didn't earn while I served my time in the U.S. Air Force. So for her to say that we grew up in mommy's basement, well, what type of basement did Chelsea Clinton grow up? Because in North Highlands, Oklahoma City, her basement sure as hell was nicer than mine.
Wow. First of all, we have the same life story. I was washing dishes at 12, cook at 13.
That's it.
Waiting tables, bussing tables. I did it all. And then construction for 10 years. Wow. What's amazing about that, we're either deplorable or we're living in mommy's and daddy's basement, or, she talks about implicit bias. We'll get to that later in the program when speaking in a black church over the weekend. So everybody's being trashed by her in some way.
She's trashing tens of millions of Americans. And what she's saying is that we're not America because we don't agree with her politics. And in the end, whose politics does she agree with? The refugees that she's bringing in who want to live by a different law where they stone women to death, where they throw gays out of buildings. And she calls the women that she's at war with, every woman that Bill has come across, bimbos, trailer trash,
narcissistic Looney Tunes.
I mean, and what she is saying basically is, from my perch up here, all of you are deplorable. You're basement dwellers. You're this, you're that. Well,
they doubled down. They doubled down.
They did double down
on deplorable, which is kind of deplorable. Not to have a play on words. No pun intended there, Charles.
Yeah, the thing here is that I think that, Hillary Clinton believes in one thing, and that is getting elected. And nothing disturbs her more than people who actually believe in something. And that's what when she goes after the deplorables, when she goes after the basement dwellers, she's going after these people because they actually believe in Bernie Sanders, or these people who believe in Donald Trump. They really believe in something. And it's so interesting to me because, and we've known this from the beginning, her husband, Bill Clinton, was a master politician. He's never seen anything that moves that he didn't want to love.
He was engaged. Everybody that meets him says he looks you in the eye, and you think you're the only person in the whole world.
And she's the opposite.
Oh, from experience, right?
People are a problem. People are a problem that need to be solved, and that's how she approaches politics, and that's why she's so appealing to not only Republicans and independents, but also Democrats.
All right, Ted, let me go back to you. Here's the bottom line for me. Is that, okay, so let's say she didn't mean to trash Bernie supporters that live in the basement. Well, then she certainly, that's an indictment against the last 8 years of Obama. You know, we have 12 million more Americans on food stamps, 8 million more Americans in poverty, the lowest labor participation rate since the 70s, 95 million Americans out of the labor force, the lowest home ownership rate in 51 years, and the worst recovery since the 40s, and we doubled the debt. Okay, so they're in the basement because Obama screwed it up. She's saying she's going to double down on Obama and adopt the same stupid policies. What's the definition of insanity?
Well, you know, again, who's to say what she's going to do? Last week, 2 weeks ago, she said that free college was attainable. And now we're listening to the tape in February that says it wasn't attainable. She talked about Senator Sanders supporters at the very beginning of it.
Keeping our doctors and keeping our plans and saving $2,500 a year, and rates have gone up for the average family, $4,100 since Obama's president in health care. Is that what she means? Because that's all bull. You know, that's another lie.
Right. Well, again, when she says that we're believing in false promises, the only thing false about this election is the fraud policies that she continues to switch every other time. Remember, Bill Clinton said that people who believed in Obama believed in a fantasy. So this is a typical strategy that they use every time it's time to go up. If you don't believe in what I say, then you believe in Tinkerbell. If you don't believe in what I say, then you're just too dumb to figure it out. But guess what? This generation has figured it out, and the only unfortunate thing is for her, when election time comes, they'll be staying in the basement and sitting that one out.
You know, what she's trying to do is right now she's trying to get Bernie supporters. Now, right now, Bernie supporters are on the fence. Most of them are still angry because she and the DNC opted to make sure that Bernie Sanders didn't get the nomination. And now she's criticizing Bernie Sanders. I mean, she's just dug a hole with Sanders supporters. But the problem is Sanders
Do you think this is going to impact the election, though? Do you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
If they stay home, it will definitely impact the election.
If Bernie Sanders people stay home, Donald Trump's the president.
He's going to win.
Well, guess what? They're not on the fence. They decided to go ahead and stay and move forward towards the promised land. The only person to jump the fence was Senator Sanders, who folded like a napkin, unfortunately. And so now he's out there having every awkward moment, like a Governor Johnson awkward moment, to be out there pushing for the same person that he said not to believe in. So we're not on the fence. We're very clear about what we believe in.
2 events in Iowa and Wisconsin with Sanders, I think, because of the comments.
I think so, too. And by the way, I don't blame Bernie for being mad. Bernie and I, years ago, had a fight. But you know what? He believes this crap. Hillary, I think, says, oh, I'll give you the free college. There's no way we could possibly in a million years pay for it. It's going to be exactly like Obamacare. Keep your doctor wrong. Keep your plan wrong. Pay less. Save $2,500 a year. No, it's going to cost you $4,100. Good to see you all. Got a break. Thank you.
Thank you.
And coming up, we have highlights from Donald Trump's rally just earlier in Colorado. Trump's campaign manager, Kellyanne Conway, will join us. And tonight, brand new ground we break in a brand new book by Ed Klein, #1 New York Times bestseller, detailing new scandals that could rock Clinton's campaign in the final 36 days. He'll join us along with Doug Schoen and more tonight on Hannity.
Live from America's News Headquarters, I'm Kelly Wright. Good evening. Here's what's happening. Hurricane Matthew approaching Haiti as a Category 4 storm. It's packing maximum sustained winds of 140 miles per hour. A hurricane warning is in effect for Haiti, eastern Cuba, and much of the Bahamas. The storm could dump up to 40 inches of rain over isolated parts of Haiti, potentially triggering flooding and mudslides. Forecasters say it's on track to pass east of Florida, but it's too soon to know if it will threaten the U.S. East Coast. Russia deploying an advanced anti-missile system to Syria. It's the latest indication that Moscow is ramping up its military support of President Bashar al-Assad. It comes after Russia's actions led to the collapse of a ceasefire, and direct talks with the U.S. was cut off. The system could potentially counter any American cruise missile attack in Syria. I'm Kelly Wright. Back now to Hannity.
I'm only 36 days away from the presidential election, and today Donald Trump, he was campaigning in the battleground state of Colorado. Here are some of those highlights.
It's great to be here today in Larimer County and in the beautiful state which we're going to win of Colorado. Beautiful. We can't have 4 more years of Barack Obama. We can't. And crooked Hillary will be worse. She'll be worse. So get those ballots in. We can't beat anybody right now. We don't beat ISIS. Can you imagine General George Patton? He's right now spinning in his grave. Can you imagine this? Can you imagine General Douglas MacArthur? We can't beat ISIS. They wouldn't know what you're even talking about. But I'll tell you one thing they wouldn't do. They wouldn't go on television to announce that very soon we're going after Mosul. Did you see that? They announced we're going after Mosul. Why do you have to talk? You do it. You do it. Boy. Then you have the leaders of ISIS, a lot of them in Mosul. They say, you know, we're getting out of here now because they announced. So we'll go through the whole thing, death and destruction, and it won't be the success it should be. They've got to keep their mouths shut and get it done.
And joining us now with the latest on the Trump campaign and a preview of what we can expect at tomorrow night's vice presidential debate, Donald Trump's campaign manager, Kellyanne Conway. Kellyanne, how are you?
Hi, Sean.
All right, let's give us a preview of, all right, what are the differences, this might be entertaining to people, between how Donald Trump prepares for debates, which has been written about a lot, and say what Mike Pence is doing, because I've not heard a peep about it.
I've worked with Mike Pence for a number of years as his pollster and senior advisor, and he has been doing mock debates with Governor Scott Walker, and he's been preparing with his senior staff. And I think you're going to see tomorrow a feisty Mike Pence take on the record of Hillary Clinton and hold her accountable for the failures of her policies as Secretary of State, also as United States Senator. Talk about an unremarkable record. And certainly if she wants to continue forward with Obama administration policies, hold her to account, Sean, on what she thinks of Obamacare. Would she bring us to a Bernie Sanders-type single-payer system, especially after we just found out she insulted all those Bernie Sanders voters? You add those millions of people to the tens of millions she said were deplorable and irredeemable, and you're getting like up to a quarter to 30% of the country that she just doesn't like. And I think in Mike Pence, I hope he'll take some time to talk about his remarkable record as governor of Indiana. He cut the unemployment rate in half. He gave a 5% across-the-board tax cut to both employers and individuals. He has an unbelievable record on manufacturing jobs. He expanded school choice and charters. He came up with an innovative free market plan in response to Obamacare called the Healthy Indiana Plan. And he's a great guy, and he's trusted by people. He's 12 years in Congress, including 10 years in the Foreign Relations Committee. When he was as governor of Indiana, he's cut the unemployment rate. Tim Kaine, it went up when he was governor of Virginia. Right there, you've got a great talker.
You know, at the end of the day, to me, this election is about big issues. And I know during debates that Hillary doesn't want to talk about, she'd rather talk about birtherism and what Donald Trump said 25 years ago. And, you know, to me, it's about, okay, we're going to cut taxes or raise taxes. So we're going to have originalists on the court or activist judges. Are we going to fire coal miners and put coal companies out of business, or be energy independent? Are we going to, you know, kind of a president that can say radical Islam or can't? Somebody who will vet refugees or not vet refugees, build a wall, not build a wall. The role of the U.S. in the world, education, fixing the VA. There's such, I can't think of one issue they agree on, meaning Trump and Hillary.
That's right. There's such a contrast. And you're right, Sean, at the fundamental level, this election is about what it's always been about. The past versus the future. Change versus status quo. A disruptive outsider versus someone who just screams and reeks of everything Washington. And by the way, so does her running mate Tim Kaine, you'll see on that debate stage tomorrow night. Between Tim Kaine and Hillary Clinton, you're talking about decades and decades and decades of being in the government, being on the government payroll, getting a really nice health care that most Americans can't access, and pensions to boot. You're also talking about this election being between a successful businessman and a typical politician. You're talking about innovative new policies to bring to Washington, where he owes nobody in Washington anything, versus a woman who's representing failed policies. The choice cannot be more clear. And Sean, that's why, despite all the hand-wringing and the Monday morning quarterbacking that we experienced in the week since the first presidential debate, you look at the new CNN poll out today, and Hillary Clinton still can't get to 50%. They're still within the margins of error. In the CNN poll of polls, Clinton 44, Trump 42. She's at 53% among women. Do you know how hard she has tried to say that Donald Trump takes the wings off of butterflies to women? And she's at 53%. She's at 53% among women. And yet she's running as the first female president. They have a problem with this woman being president. Something's not working. Something's holding people back.
So a week from yesterday, this coming Sunday, they will have their second debate.
Yes.
And it was interesting going into the first debate because a lot of people wanted to see, is Donald Trump going to hold his fire? Now that Hillary has come out with both barrels and she doesn't want to talk about the economy or protecting the homeland, but all she wants to do is make this election about Donald Trump left a lot on the table. The email server, lying about Benghazi, abandoning troops that were out in the field, her supporting Obama's failed economic policies, the $6 billion she lost as Secretary of State, horrible foreign policy problems. Are we going to see more of that, do you think, in the next debate?
You will, and remember, this is a town hall format, Sean, where many of those questions will come from the audience. I think it's a great format for Donald Trump, who every single day, as you just showed in your clip, is out there on the stump engaging with people. That's where he loves. He gets oxygen from the people. It's a great format for him. Secondly, there are so many issues in Hillary Clinton's scandalabra, and there are so many issues in Hillary Clinton's failed policies. Just today, her president, I guess, again, trying to help her on the stump, we're told, was talking about the failings of Obamacare. He went after, in 3 different statements that I read, where he's really calling into question whether it's effective, whether it's arranged properly, if it's benefiting people it was supposed to. So I think Donald Trump, he'll be able to get all that out in a town hall format. The other thing I just wanted to mention is you're absolutely right. Donald Trump got zero credit from the naysayers and his detractors on how gracious and restrained he was.
He wasn't going to do. They all thought he was going to come out guns blazing, firing, making crazy comments about Hillary. But that didn't happen. So you can't win for losing, I guess, if you're running a campaign. I wouldn't want your job I don't care what you're being paid, it's not enough.
Well, I appreciate that, Sean. I just want to say this about the debates, though. I think we're also missing the things that Donald Trump did say successfully last week in that first debate. He did get out that she's been there for 30 years, so what the heck has changed? Why would we entrust her as a change maker when 70% of Americans say they want this country to go in a new and different direction? What possibly credentials her to make that change? He talked about her failures on trade. He talked about the fact that she and her boss, President Obama, created a vacuum in which ISIS arrived. But you're right, to put onto the table all of the Hillary Clinton problems and put them out there and weave them into his answers. I think you're going to see a lot of that next Sunday. We're really excited for Mike Pence tomorrow and for Donald Trump next Sunday.
All right, Kellyanne, thanks for being with us. When we come back, author Ed Klein, #1 New York Times bestseller, has a brand new book about the Clintons. Just how far will they go to cover up their transgressions? He joins us next, along with Doug Schoen. Also, over the weekend, the liberal New York Times released an article about Trump's taxes, but what about the Clintons? We're going to expose the out-of-control liberal hypocrisy. We'll check in with Anthony Scaramucci, Eric Bolling, and much more tonight on Hannity. Welcome back to Hannity. A brand new book is exposing some very disturbing new details about the Clintons. Guilty as Sin by Ed Klein is out in bookstores tomorrow. Ed joins us now, along with the author of Putin's Master Plan, former Clinton pollster, Fox News contributor Doug Schoen. By the way, they just released this statement. Let's see, about Ed Klein's writings have been shunned by all but the extreme fringes of the internet, and anyone who claims to be a legitimate media outlet should be ashamed to report it. By the way, is this like calling Monica Lewinsky a narcissistic Looney Tune?
Right.
The same thing? Or drag a dollar bill through a trailer park? It's kind of the same, right?
If they had any real proof that this was wrong, they should bring the people forward and say, no, I didn't tell Klein that. But they never, ever do that. All they do is throw
But your background as a real reporter, you were the
I was the editor-in-chief of the New York Times Magazine, the foreign editor of Newsweek.
What happened to you? I mean, you became normal. You grew out of that liberalism, I guess. All right, but that's what they always do. So they release a statement. They trash you. They trash the book. A rambling news screed in line with the rest of his work is discredited fiction. Okay, that's what they do. But that's what they've also done to all these women.
That's right.
And you talk about he's not changed. You're talking about interns at the Clinton Library in Arkansas giving him foot massages?
20-some-year-old interns,
yeah,
like Monica was 20-some years old, right?
Yeah.
Giving him foot massages in his penthouse apartment in Little Rock.
Does Hillary know about this?
I mean, you can't make this stuff up. And I've interviewed these women who did it.
You did?
Yes. And they're proud of it.
Yeah, you did mention that. They say,
you know,
oh, I get to do it to a president.
Touching the president is very thrilling, is what they say.
Well, what is your take on this?
My take is the more discussion there is of the Clintons' personal life, the better it is for their election campaign.
Well, why do you I know you've said that to me before, but why do you believe that?
Here's why I believe it. The issues in this country work to the advantage of Donald Trump. The more that the dialogue is about Hillary or Bill Clinton's peccadillos, the more Trump doubles down, the more he doesn't talk about the economy. He doesn't talk about the big issue of the day, which is our absolute failure in Syria and the failure of Obamacare.
But these are legitimate issues. One of the big issues you deal with in the book, Ed, has to do with Hillary's health, and it's far worse than what we know. And that, for example, you think first of all, you confirm she has arrhythmia?
Arrhythmia.
And a bad valve, heart valve?
She has a heart valve problem that the doctors wanted to replace the heart valve, and she didn't do it because she was afraid that it would leak out.
Death.
And she's got clotting problems. She's got
we know that she's on lifetime Coumadin and an anticoagulant, but wait a minute. If she has a bad valve, any good doctor is going to say you've got to replace it.
They did, and she said no because she was worried that if she had, it would leak out, that she had a surgery, and that would somehow undercut her
in the
presidential
book, you also talk
race.
about her going and having privacy within a New York hospital. Like they sneak her in the back, underneath, I guess underneath the hospital to a private area.
They do that for a checkup, yes.
Okay.
But here's the thing. When Donald Trump mimics her falling down and trivializes, in a certain sense, the serious issues that are getting raised, all that happens is we lose focus on change, corruption, and the need for a new direction, which are his issues and his themes.
You know, look, I do think Ed's work is important, because especially because he's reporting and he's given his sources, and I know anyone in the liberal left media is going to hate him and try and discredit him, and they'll still, didn't your last book topple Hillary's #1 on the New York Times? So it had to sell twice as much as her.
Knocked her off the top.
But Ed's selling books. Donald Trump's trying
to be president.
Trying to be president. Different goals, different responsibilities.
You see, I agree with you. I think it's got to be substance. She'll raise your taxes, I'll cut your taxes. Obamacare will be repealed or you keep it.
Right.
You're going to vet refugees or not. You're going to say radical Islam or not. You're going to become energy independent or not. You'll secure the border or not. There's such deep and profound differences.
Sean, if you just take those lines, transport them to Donald Trump, and he says them for the next 35 days.
Just that. She'll do this, I'll do that.
Right. That's better than anything Donald Trump has done on the campaign trail in the last 10 days.
I'd also tell him to talk about the worst recovery since the 40s, lowest labor participation in the 70s, 12 million more Americans on food stamps, 8 million more in poverty.
Look, if
doubling of the debt.
Donald Trump, Steve Bannon, and Kellyanne Conway are watching this segment, they should memorize what you've said, because it's the most important thing they could bring.
Well, you know, nobody listens to me. You know that, right?
Sean, a lot of people listen to you.
We all listen.
We all do.
Do you agree from the political sense Doug's right? Because I actually think he's right.
I think he's right up to a point, but the fact that she is so corrupt, and
that's important.
Everyone understands that she's corrupt, and that is not a small matter.
Where is the narrative?
I'll give it to you. All right, for example, she attacks him in the next debate.
She's attacked him today.
Okay, but in the next debate, when they're side by side, and he should turn and say, let's say she brings up his taxes or tax returns or what he said 20 years ago about a woman. All right, I just turn to her and say, Hillary, I know you want to go down in the gutter and talk about those things because you don't want to remind the American people you left 4 brave Americans to hanging out to dry in Benghazi. If I'm president, I wouldn't do that.
Right, and we heard nothing like that in the first debate.
That's called a pivot.
Nothing since then. No pivots. Doubles down on Machado. Attacks Bill and Hillary.
I agree. That was dumb.
It's all been a mistake.
That was dumb.
And someone ought to say to Donald Trump, you're blowing the election.
Curiel, Khan, Machado, done. Out. Agreed. What do you think?
I think he's right. I think he's right, but I also think she's a very vulnerable candidate. And I think he needs to continue, in addition to what Doug is saying, remind everybody this is a corrupt woman because the American public understands.
I think they all know she's corrupt and dishonest and a liar and untruthful. And by the way, her policies are bad. It's basically doubling down on stupid, which is Obama's policies for the last 8 years.
What will we have if she's in the White House?
Yeah.
More scandals, more corruption.
You're right.
and you'll have a less good quality of life. That is the key issue for the
change you're
American
talking
people.
about.
That's
change and corruption.
Correct.
All right, got it. All right, coming up, the liberal New York Times trying to smear Donald Trump over his taxes, but we've actually done the media's job. Wait till you hear what the Clintons and the left-wing newspaper, the New York Times, have done to avoid paying their own taxes. A hint, boxers or briefs, deductions. Anthony Scaramucci, Eric Bolling are next.
We can acknowledge that implicit bias still exists, not just in police departments, but throughout our country, without vilifying police officers.
And over the weekend, Hillary Clinton addressed a predominantly African-American church in North Carolina. We're going to show you more of what she said. We'll get reaction from Sheriff David Clark and Larry Elder. That and more tonight on Hannity. And welcome back to Hannity. So the Trump campaign is pushing back against yet another hit piece from the New York Times, aiming to try and take down the Republican nominee. So over the weekend, the liberal paper, which was, of course, endorsing Hillary Clinton for president, may have violated federal law by publishing what appears to be pages from Trump's 1995 tax returns that show business losses. Now, the Times then took the attack even further by speculating without any proof whatsoever that because of these losses, well, Trump may have avoided paying federal income taxes for nearly 18 years. Now, in response to the Times, the Trump campaign quickly fired back in a statement stating, quote, Mr. Trump is a highly skilled businessman who has a fiduciary responsibility to his business, his family, and his employees to pay no more tax than is legally required. Now, that being said, Mr. Trump has paid hundreds of millions of dollars in property taxes, sales, excise taxes, real estate taxes, city taxes, state taxes, employee taxes, and federal taxes, along with very substantial charitable contributions. Mr. Trump knows the tax code far better than anyone who has ever run for president, and he is the only one that knows how to fix it. Now, while the New York Times attack on Trump, that's not surprising, the blatant liberal hypocrisy is the issue here. Now, while the Times is trying to paint Trump without any proof as someone who is a tax dodger, well, they kind of failed to tell you that according to Forbes, well, that newspaper, they didn't pay any federal taxes in 2014. And predictably, Hillary Clinton has gone after Trump over the story while ignoring her own attempts to lower her tax bill using the law. In 2014, Bloomberg reported that the Clintons, who support the death tax, well, they took steps to avoid paying what they normally owe under proposals that they champion. And according to the Washington Post, the Clintons have gone to extremes to save even a few bucks on their taxes, including writing off Bill Clinton's donated used underwear in 1993. Big question is whether or not it was boxers, tighty whities. I don't know. Now, the Clintons were also willing to take a handout from donors to cover massive legal bills from their many lawsuits during their time in the White House. And according to the Washington Post, well, Clinton's allies, they raised more than $4.5 million to cover those expenses, including the $850,000 they paid Paula Jones. Here with reaction, author of Wake Up America, co-host of The Five, our friend Eric Bolling, and Trump Campaign national finance member and co-host of Wall Street Week on the Fox Business Network, Anthony Scaramucci. All right. The Clintons, they used every tax deduction. In 2015, they claimed a $699,000 loss.
But again, the real issue is that what used to be called the fourth estate, Sean, is now part of the state. The mainstream media is now an organized member of the state, prosecuting the way Pravda used to do for the Soviet Union. Yeah. It's a coordinated attack against
it's true.
the
It's
opponent.
illegal, and the same.
It's
they
ridiculous.
Wouldn't publish the global warming papers that came out on global warming gate, Eric. So
you know why the Clintons are having such a hard time dealing with this? Because they've never had a business risk. They've never had a business loss. They've never had to take risk in business to try and make a profit. They just simply have lived off the taxpayers' money or lived off the donations of people who are trying to buy influence. So I went back a little bit, Sean. Look, Henry Ford went bankrupt 2 times and then became a in today's dollars, multi-billionaire. But even more importantly, Warren Buffett is a liberal hero. He's a hero to the Clintons, too. I did a little homework. I found out in 2014, Warren Buffett lost $873 million in a company called Energy Futures Holding Corp. Now, let me ask you something. Do you think Warren Buffett has said, no, you know what? I think the country needs this. I'm going to let you eat. I'm going to eat this loss. I'm going to let you keep the rest of that money, and I'm not going to declare a tax deduction on all the profits going forward. Unlikely. More likely is that he's using the same exact tax code that Donald Trump used after the 1995
But they made
loss.
a big assumption here, and by the way, they used the tax code over the New York Times, but the net loss carry forward would have been from 95 to what? 2010?
You don't know.
We don't know.
Well, you get 3 years prior and then 15 years forward. That's where the 18 years comes from. But listen, Judge Leonard Hand, Oliver Wendell Holmes, they've all said the same thing. Yep. Famous cases saying, Sean, you don't have to pay any more than what you have to legally and what's allowable inside the IRS code. That's all Mr. Trump has done.
Otherwise he'd be in jail.
Of course. It's a free enterprise system, and they're trying to convert that as well.
Well, Hillary has contacts at the Justice Department and the FBI. Maybe Bill can meet Loretta Lynch on a plane, and maybe James Comey can get on the case and they can get off Trump's back in terms of audits. Here's an interesting thing she said today. She said, how could one guy lose $1 billion? Now, Trump, he personally guaranteed the loans in question here. Here's what's interesting. There's a Washington Free Beacon piece. As Secretary of State, the State Department misplaced $6 billion, according to an Inspector General report. $6 billion. And it said that it created a significant financial risk for the country that they can't manage their money this way. $6 billion. The only difference is it's not her money.
It's never her money.
It's never her money.
Tax code 74,608 pages long, and honestly, the bottom line to all this is he did nothing illegal. He used the tax code the way any American would, or any business owner would and should.
But it's also the way the Clintons and the New York Times
has, and Warren Buffett and anyone else who's in the business. And bottom line is the reason why they can't understand how someone could lose $915 or $16 million. Because they've never taken risk before. If you've never taken risk,
by the way, there is some backstory to this. I talked to Larry Kudlow today, who's a friend of all of ours, and he pointed out that a lot of the losses were created because of government regulation in the tax law, where secondary investors were their benefit. In other words, they changed the law in terms of secondary investors' ability to write off losses, and as a result, they all pulled their money out, which caused a lot of what happened in Atlantic City.
Yeah, so again, and Mr. Trump has said that consistently, that the regulations at the time hurt the casino business and caused him to eject himself. So that was actually a smart business move by him to remove himself from Atlantic City.
Yeah,
but Sean, Halloween, I'm going as a tax shamer. Okay, I'm going to wear the 1040 on my face.
Very quickly, what likely happened in order to lose that kind of money in 1 year, what likely happened is he was losing money in years prior. He rolled them forward, which means he showed profits in the years prior and paid tax on those dollars that were profit, which could have been losses taken over a course of time. And finally, at some point where he says, I'm done, I'm pushing all my chips in, I have a $916 million loss this year, taking it now, and then you work off your future income.
I got to roll.
Very, very, very basic
This impacts the election, Sean?
I don't think so.
Yeah, no, me either. You think it impacts the election?
It's 5 weeks away. No one will be talking about this in 5 days.
All right, guys. Coming up next tonight, right here on Hannity.
We can acknowledge that implicit bias still exists, not just in police departments, but throughout our country, without vilifying police officers.
That was Hillary Clinton speaking before a predominantly African-American church in North Carolina over the weekend. Sheriff David Clark, Larry Elder, they'll weigh in as we continue. Welcome back to Hannity. So over the weekend, Hillary Clinton spoke at a predominantly African-American church yesterday in Charlotte, North Carolina. Let's watch this.
I'm a grandmother, and like every grandmother, I worry about the safety and security of my grandchildren, but my worries are not the same as black grandmothers. We can acknowledge that implicit bias still exists, not just in police departments, but throughout our country, without vilifying police officers. We can call for reforms to policing while still appreciating the many courageous and admirable officers out there who are doing their jobs with honor and integrity. They say that all of our problems would be solved simply by more law and order, as if the systemic racism plaguing our country doesn't exist.
Here with reaction, Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clark and Salem nationally syndicated radio host Larry Elder. All right, so first it's Larry, it's deplorables. Then it's Bernie Sanders supporters living in mommy's basement. And then it's, well, we all have this implicit bias that exists all throughout the country. So I guess everybody is now officially trashed by Hillary. Maybe she has implicit bias. Her mentor was a former Klansman. Bill's mentor was a former segregationist. You know, Robert Byrd and J. William Fulbright, they supported the Confederate flag in Arkansas. So maybe she's just talking about herself and projecting.
My objection, Sean, is to this expression she just now used, systemic racism. What the hell does that even mean? Obama's been in charge of the government for 8 years. We've had back-to-back black attorneys general. How come they haven't fixed it? Police shootings of black people are very, very rare. If by systemic racism she's talking about the large number of inner-city black kids who are killed by other black kids, then let's talk about that. 50% of the homicides are black on black, most of them young people, most of them in the inner city, and it is because of the policies of the left that have destroyed families, that have made a lot of young black men not law-abiding. That's what we ought to be talking about. And I said this before, Sean. Obama said a kid raised by the dad is 20 times more likely to go to jail. Why aren't we talking about what the left wing of this country has done to destroy black families in a way that even slavery and Jim Crow couldn't do and didn't do?
You know, I mean, I thought Trump captured the sheriff the other night, and when he talked at length about, oh, Democrats come calling every 4 years, and they want to generate passion in the black community, and they want people to get out and vote. But what have we done to help the black community? 58% increase blacks on food stamps under Obama, 20% increase blacks out of the labor force, and then black unemployment higher than the national average, nearly double. Black home ownership down. 55% of black teenagers can't find a summer job. I don't know if I didn't have a summer job, I'd be getting in trouble.
Sean, 50 years of lies are what the black people in America have been told under Democrat rule in the American ghetto. Look, the implicit bias test that she's talking about has been challenged by people within the field of social science. In other words, their own peers are saying that test is not credible, it's not reliable. Maybe she's a racist. She should speak for herself. I'm not. The only racism that I see on display is that from the Democrat Party that keeps black families shackled to the new plantation. The cotton field has been replaced by the American ghetto, where black people cannot find meaningful work. Their kids are shackled to failing public schools. They live in neighborhoods that are crime-ridden, violence, murder's been up under the first black president. So you can go on and on and on. I've told black people over and over and over again to free themselves from the Democrat Party, quit the Democrat Party, shop your vote around. Look, Donald Trump has made an offer: better schools, more jobs, safer neighborhoods. Make people earn your vote. And if nothing else, if you don't want to vote for Donald J. Trump, I would suggest, just a suggestion, sit this one out, do a Colin Kaepernick, take a knee on the presidential race and vote down ticket, but stay out of the presidential race.
I would call it now take it a Kaepernick. Larry, will we see a shift in voting patterns in the black community because of, you know, decade after decade of failure? The worst schools often are in black communities. We haven't fixed them.
I certainly hope so, because as you pointed out, Obama has not delivered on the primary reason that black people voted for him, which is the economy. And we've had two recent studies, one by a Harvard economist named Roland Fryer, another one by some researchers at Washington State, that show, and get this, cops are more reluctant, more hesitant to pull the trigger against a black suspect compared to a white suspect. So the whole premise, Black Lives Matter, is flat out not true. Police shootings against blacks are down 75% over the last 45 years, according to the CDC. It is rare for a black person to be killed by a cop, let alone a white cop killing an unarmed black person. What's not rare is for a black person, young black person, to be killed by another black person. Yeah. The number one preventable cause of death for young black people is murder. The number one preventable cause of death for young whites is car accidents. So that's what's going on here.
But every 4 years, every 2 years, Sheriff, there it is, the same thing. Democrats, they play the race card. And I got to be honest, it's been effective over the years, otherwise they stopped doing it.
The voters. They've been hoodwinking the voters for 50 years. Look, Mrs. Bill Clinton cannot point to one thing that has improved in the American ghetto after 50 years of voting monolithically for Democrats. Black people just need to open their eyes, take a look around. Inadequate housing, high infant mortality rate, gang and drug involvement, failing schools, no jobs, on and on and on. It is high time in America for black people to make this political class earn their vote and stop just giving it away.
All right, guys, good to see you both. Appreciate it.
Got it.
And coming up, we need your help. A very important question of the day is straight ahead. All right, time for our question of the day. Does Hillary Clinton owe Bernie Sanders supporters an apology? What about the deplorable comment? What about living in your mommy's basement? Why didn't Obama fix it? Is anyone in the media going to ask her that? She's going to follow up on those policies. Anyway, we want to hear from you. Go to Facebook.com/Sean Hannity, @Sean Hannity on Twitter. Let us know what you think. Quick programming note. Right after the VP debate, we will be live at midnight in Virginia tomorrow with analysis and reaction. But that's all the time we have left for this evening. As of tomorrow, only 35 days. Big election. Your choice. You deserve the government you will get. I hope you'll vote. We'll see you back here tomorrow night.